Mr. Tape Man still has their job. Although I will say the straightness and the general quality of the tape job has definitely gone downhill, so I'm thinking maybe they've received a tenured position. But anyway, about 6 months ago at this point, I spent $1,400 on a gaming PC from Aliexpress. And aside from it being a little bit rough around the edges, it was an awesome system. Although, it's been 6 months, and considering that the global PC market's been on a heavy drug binge for like a year now, I thought, what does $1,400 buy you on AliExpress at the moment? Is it gonna be better? Is it gonna be worse? Is it gonna have flesh-eating bacteria in the box? I don't know, but we're gonna find out today. But before we get into that, it's time for today's video sponsor that helped me pay for this box tape. Today's video is sponsored by the Elgato Wave 3 USB microphone, which I'm actually using to record this audio. This is what it sounds like when I provocatively whisper into the microphone. The microphone uses a premium condenser capsule that picks up audio in a cardioid polar pattern. The Elgato Wave 3 also has a physical volume gain knob right on the front of the microphone, making it really easy to adjust your levels on the fly. The Elgato Wave 3 also has a capacitive mute button right on the top of the microphone so that you can shout at your neighbors midstream without getting banned on Twitch. So considering the Wave 3's noob-friendly plug-and-play functionality mixed with its excellent audio quality, this is an amazing option for anybody who wants to step up their audio game. Thank you very much, Elgato Wave 3, for sponsoring today's video. Now before we derobe the system and play around with its insides, I just want to walk you through the experience that I had with the seller, Ibsen, because it was actually really pleasant. When I ordered the system on AliExpress, I cheaped out and got the AliExpress shipping. And after maybe a day, I got a message from the seller saying that they don't trust the AliExpress shipping, so they'll give me a free upgrade to the DHL shipping, I was very excited about that. And it meant that the system took 2 weeks to arrive from placing the order, which for AliExpress is real impressive. So let's open it up and have a look at what we got. Now aside from the uncharacteristically amateur box tape job, the box has actually suffered quite a beating in its journey with DHL. And then another weird thing aside from that is that it has lithium battery warnings on it, which would make sense if this was a laptop, but it's not a laptop, so yeah, I'm curious to see what batteries are in here. Oh, this is a very flimsy box, and in there, we have what looks like a significantly less interesting PC than last time. Oof, someone fell out. I really like the inclusion of these two little packets of air. That'll really make all the difference. I don't know if you can see any of this on camera, but looking through there are some worrying things going on. The graphics card's actually not installed. I'm kind of hoping it's in this box, because it doesn't seem to be in the case, but we'll check that out in a second. Let's first just have a closer look at the system. There we go. Ayo. After unboxing the system, I was greeted by this. It seems like DHL still hosts its illegal underground pre-built fights. However, I don't think it's entirely DHL's fault. If the seller had used higher quality foam and double boxed the system, maybe it would have survived DHL's mild curb stomping. But with that, let's have a closer look at this interesting looking case. The case is definitely less pink than last time, but it's still quite interesting. I've never seen this case before. On the front, you've got this kind of like metalish plate on the front with a bit of ventilation that I don't think does much. And then we've got this plate with the power button on it and some more ventilation behind that. And on the top, not much going on in terms of ventilation, but it's another one of those metal plates. The front I/O is on the side here, which I actually think is a really good spot for front I/O, especially if you have your system on the desk next to you. On the side, we've got very restricted ventilation and a dent. In terms of rear I/O, it looks distinctly 2012 gaming system. We don't have a graphics card. I don't see it lying on the inside of the case. I think it's definitely in that other box, which we'll talk about in a bit. And then finally, we have the power supply, which is by Corsair. Oh, a nice glass panel. Whoa, okay, there's a lot going on in here. Let's start with the positives. We have dual channel RAM, isn't that nice? Look, ooh, 2 sticks. I think this is 16 gigs, and then right next to that we have an AIO. It is designed by Cooler Master, and as you can see, it's got these cute, rigid, thin little tubes. Under there, we have a Ryzen 5 3600, which is a 6-core 12-thread CPU, and we should get pretty decent temperatures with this AIO. Now, when it comes to the motherboard, I don't actually recognize this. It is an Asus B450M Dragon board, which I don't think I've seen for sale locally, and it does seem to be quite a basic motherboard. You can see that that is not much of a power delivery we have over there. Under that, we have a decent WD 500 gig NVMe drive, which has this kind of seal that protects the screw underneath. Again, I've not really seen that before. And if you have a closer look at the PCIe slot, you can see we have some thermal paste splatter. I think that thermal paste bukkake is a fairly standard feature on Aliexpress PCs, because this is the third one out of 3 that I've seen with it on. These front 3 fans are doing some experimental choking with that solid front panel. And these 2 fans in the top are also definitely not doing anything. In fact, the only bit of the case that even remotely resembles actual functioning ventilation doesn't have fans on it. It's like the only bit of the case that doesn't have fans on it. This is a bit of a brave move. Now, up until this point, again, the eagle-eyed of you would have noticed that there is no graphics card. So let's go check out that box and hope that the graphics card's in there. Now, supposedly, we should have an RTX 3060 in here, so let's see what version of the card we got. Oh, that actually looks like a really awesome version of the card. Ooh, look at that. We've got a tough gaming version of the RTX 3060, and that is quite a good looking card. We've got a huge heatsink on here with a very open air design, and on the back we've got some tire tread effect for some reason. But I guess you know what they say, nothing says premium gaming hardware like roadkill. Ooh. Whoa. Damn, when you take the back panel off, you can really see how structural the damage is that it suffered in shipping. That sucks. This system really got its ass handed to it. I think I'm gonna message the seller and see what they have to say about it. The rear cable management is pretty good. Everything's routed relatively neatly around the case. And then we have this huge fan hub that controls all of the useless fans around the case. And then in terms of power supply, we have this Corsair VS550 unit. It's a 550 watt power supply. It's very basic, but it should be okay, and it should get the job done. So with that, let's put the graphics card in here, fire it up, and see what kind of VD we have on here. Okay, every time I see this case, I just feel bad for it. Damn. But yeah, it's the moment of truth. Let's see if it still works. Okay, I don't know why that's happening. It's seizuring quite hard. Oh, yes, we do have a signal out. Now, the RAM is running at 2666 megahertz as opposed to 3000 megahertz. And as you can see, no settings were changed in the BIOS. I don't know why they thought that ecstasy-induced rave was the best default setting for the lighting. Wow, there really is nothing on here. This is a completely virgin Windows install. That's amazing. I don't think I've ever seen that on a pre-built system. Okay, I've installed Aura Creator. I've also installed Armory Crate and looked on both of them. It seems like that RGB isn't plugged into the RGB header on the motherboard, so we don't have like software control of it. I don't know, I'm gonna have to figure out how to get it to not be running in a seizure mode. So let me just open up the back and have a closer look at what's going on over there. Okay, so we've got RGB problems that we have to deal with, which, as you all know, is my favorite thing in the world to do. But anyway, we have this fan hub RGB thing, which has a bunch of warranty void if removed stickers, which is quite funny because for some reason, according to them, unplugging a fan voids your warranty, which is a bit weird. But anyway, this, I think, also controls the RGB. Now there is this controller, which I think may change the RGB settings. Okay, well, let me actually test that. Okay, so we have the death flashing happening here. Let's see. Yes, that does change it. That is actually really irritating, because it means the only way to change it from the just seizure-inducing RGB vomit spectrum death, whatever, is by opening your back panel and using this little controller. Now, I do think that you can plug this into the RGB header on your motherboard for software control. I think that's what this cable is, but it's not been plugged in. It ends up here. I think this is the header.
A few moments later.
So after an unacceptable amount of struggling, I've freed this little RGB header, which I assume is the thing that gives this controller software RGB support. I don't know that for a fact because the label is in what I think is Mandarin, and I can't read Mandarin. So I'm just gonna plug it into an RGB header on the motherboard and hopefully nothing explodes. Well, nothing's immediately exploded, so that's good. Now, let's see if we do actually have software control of the RGB, because I just want to gauge how infuriated I should be about the fact that it wasn't plugged in. Search for devices. It's not compatible with Aura Sync. So that's why it's not plugged in. That kind of explains that. Which really makes that out-of-the-box RGB configuration an interesting stylistic choice. But anyway, let's see what kind of gaming experience we get with this system. At this point, we're about 50 minutes into this session of Battlefield 5, almost at an hour, and the temperatures have been stable for ages. They're really good. This is like the best pre-built gaming temps I've ever had. That huge cooler on the RTX 3060 is clearly overkill, considering that we've barely touched 56 degrees Celsius through this entire session, which is crazy. Even the CPU is doing fine at 62C. It does feel like there's a bit of a CPU bottleneck here with Battlefield 5 at 1080p. We're running at high settings, and this is with the RAM running at 2666 MHz as opposed to 3000 MHz. But this has been a very good gaming experience. Now, the frame rate's been jumping between about 110 and like 140 frames per second, which feels really good. But let's have a look at a wider variety of games, and then we'll compare it to its 6-month-older brother. That gaming performance is pretty good. I was expecting better for a system with an RTX 3060 in it, but at 1080p for more demanding games at higher settings, we were still getting a solid high refresh rate gaming experience, which, yeah, that's what more could you want, right? But how does it compare to the previous system that we bought 6 months ago? On paper, it seems like it should be clear cut. That system has an RTX 2060 in it, whereas this system has a 3060 in it. However, aside from just the graphics card, pretty much everything else in that 6-month-old system was better. We got a 10700F in there, which gives you 2 more cores. We've got a better motherboard, a better power supply, a better AIO, a more interesting case, and it's pink, which should account for some performance differential. So let's do some comparative benchmarks to see how far we've come in 6 months. Now, these results had me a bit confused, because despite having a faster graphics card, the results were pretty much the same. And it's not like the Ryzen 5 3600 is a bad CPU, it shouldn't be holding back the system that much. But to test this, I reran the Battlefield 5 benchmarks at 1440p. And lo and behold, the RTX 3060 based system did pull ahead of the older system. Now, what I thought then was maybe the reason that the Ryzen 3600 was struggling was because I was running the two systems in the out-of-the-box configuration, the way they shipped from the Ipsen seller. So the RAM was running at 2666 MHz on the Ryzen 5 system. So I set the RAM to its max 3000 MHz speed, and well, it didn't make that big of a difference. So yes, the gaming performance is pretty similar at 1080p, and at 1440p you'll get more performance out of the newer system. And then the last thing I want to talk about before we finish off this video is I actually reached out to the AliExpress seller Ibsen. And I was like, hey guys, did you accidentally check the alleyway beating option while filling out the DHL shipping form? Because the case came quite brutalized. So they asked me to send photos of the damage and if the PC was still working. So I sent them photos of the damage and told them that yes, the PC was still working. So they then very apologized and said that no, we'll negotiate reparations for this problem. How about we send you $20? What am I gonna do with $20? Am I just gonna like rub it on the bit of damage on the case and hope that it fixes it? I was kind of hoping they'd at least replace the case because, you know, it's partially their fault. If they packaged the system better, it wouldn't have arrived as damaged even though DHL decided to play hacky sack with the package or whatever. In their defense, at least they shipped the system without the graphics card actually mounted. Otherwise, that thick boy would have ripped that system apart. So at the end of the day, after 6 months on AliExpress, we were getting very similar gaming performance. In fact, weirdly similar gaming performance, but at least we didn't go backwards, right? And as is always the case with AliExpress, you get really interesting hardware configurations for the money, but then there are like huge asterisks behind it. You're either gonna get a bunch of shipping damage, or your RAM's not gonna work, or you're gonna have very difficult to deal with RGB seizure happening, which means if you're considering buying an AliExpress system, which depending on where you live in the world may be one of your best bets, but if you're gonna go into one of these systems, I wouldn't recommend doing it unless you have at least some ability to diagnose problems with a system. If you go into one of these AliExpress PCs as a complete noob with no idea how to fix stuff, that may be a bit of a route to tears. Oh, and on a final note, I just looked on a local Canadian kind of PC shop chain called Canada Computers, and they actually have pretty much the identical core specifications to this system. So a Ryzen 5 3600, an RTX 3060, 16 gigs of RAM and like a 500 gig NVMe SSD, for quite a lot less than what this system cost, even after tax, and you don't have to worry about shipping because you can just go pick it up at the local shop. So subscribe to the channel and comment down below letting me know if you want to see that video comparing like a Canadian pre-built to an AliExpress pre-built. I think that could be pretty interesting. And that brings me to the end of the video. So thank you very much for watching, and until the next time, bye-bye.